Hi guys, happy Halloween. And if you are not like on our, I don't know, YouTube channel, which you're probably not because we don't have our posts there, you might not know this, but me and Sam are releasing this episode as a video and also as a audio. So you can listen to us, but you also can come and see us dressed up in our cool Halloween costumes. Which first off, let's talk about Halloween costumes. Sam, go first.
Walmart had this left, and I actually had one of these before. I got rid of it, and then I was like, I want that shirt back, and so I have the shirt back. And then this is, I think it's Nightmare Before Christmas on it. So it's just a little
Oh.
headband. I'm dressing up both days that I work at work. So I got this headband and then this shirt. And then I have another one that says Boo Boo Crew with a whole bunch of ghosts that wear like masks and have little needles and stuff.
Mhm.
And then I have like a little headband for that too. And I bought candy for all my CNAs. So I'll be able to give that to them because I won't be working on Halloween. So ta-da! It's what Walmart had
Me
left.
too. Woo! Well, if you guys are curious, and this is going to age me hardcore, but if you guys are curious about why I'm wearing a tiara and my, like, my headphones and these cool 90s themed glasses, and also don't pay attention to the bottom part because I'm not wearing my dress. But if you guys are, wondering why I am, if you haven't seen the movie, I probably look like I'm crazy, but I am Mia from Princess Diaries, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. And so I have these cool 90s sunglasses. My tiara that's actually like real metal. I don't know if you can hear it. It's real metal, which is actually really good quality. My headphones, yeah. So I'm Princess Diaries. If you have not seen the movie, then you should definitely go check it out because what are you doing with your life? I'm also probably gonna take these off because I really can't sing anything. But anyways, me and Sam are gonna be doing our fun Halloween episode. Last year we did a Halloween episode in which Sam did a spooky story about what was it about,
Like
werewolf?
some wolf in North Carolina.
Oh, the
Yeah, so I
hellhound.
tried to stick with North Carolina spookiness, and then you did like a really awesome story. So this year I tried to find a story, and I was actually, I found one. So
Ooh.
I'm excited to tell you about this and then give you
Ooh.
nightmares.
Okay. Well, I also last year I did a whole historical story about Houdini and his like hatred for mediums and psychics, which that was a super interesting episode. So if you guys do want to check that out, please go do so because you should check it out because it was a fun episode. But we thought we'd do it again. So I don't know what story Sam's going to tell me, and Sam does not know what story I'm going to tell her. But let me just say, my story gave me nightmares. So, Sam, do you want to start? Because I don't think I'm ready for my nightmares yet.
uh, yeah, I can go. That's fine. That's
Ooh,
good.
okay, let's start.
I will be reading 90% of this.
That's okay because I have like 5 pages
Let
of
me
notes. So,
so for the people who are watching on YouTube, if you see me turning my head this way, Morgan is on this screen, and what I have written is on this screen because I got two screens going on right now. So I'm not looking away from her; I'm actually looking at her. So yeah, that's my explanation because I have to explain that to people that I'm not ignoring you. I really am not. Okay, so have you ever heard of Minnie Dean?
wait, what was it?
Have you ever heard of Minnie Dean?
Dean, like Dean?
Oh, yeah, Dean, also known as the baby farmer.
No, but I don't like. Is this a child? I don't like children. Ew. Like not children, but I don't like children ghosts. Ew. No, I have not, but it reminds
So
me of Dean
there's no
Winchester.
ghosts involved, but it's probably worse. It's probably worse, but there are no ghosts involved.
Okay, well, I
So
have
Miss
not.
Minnie McCulloch, who was born in central Scotland, her father John McCulloch was a railway engineer, and her mother Elizabeth Swan died of cancer in 1857. It is unknown when she arrived in New Zealand, but Miss Minnie McCulloch lived in Scotland and then moved to New Zealand. So in 1872, she married an innkeeper named Charles Dean. The two lived in Edel Creek between Ojai and Lumsden. It doesn't matter if you know where those are. And they moved there during the gold rush. And then when the gold rush died down, they ended up returning to farming. But soon they were in dire financial straits. the family moved to Winton, where Charles Dean took up pig farming while Minnie began to earn money by baby farming, taking in unwanted children in exchange for payment. In an era where there were few methods of contraception and when childbirth outside of marriage was frowned
So she
upon, there
basically
were
was
many
like
women
a
wishing to
she's basically a foster mom, right?
so she took them in. They're like
Yeah, she was a
fosters.
foster mom. So she's a good soul.
So she took in some foster kids for like women who like bad situations, rape. If like the husband died, they had no means to support the children. They would give them to this woman, and she would essentially raise them like an orphanage, foster mom kind of thing. In an era where there were few methods of contraception and where childbirth outside of marriage was frowned upon, there were many women wishing to discreetly send their children away for adoption. So Minnie Dean did not lack customers. It is believed she was responsible for as many as 9 young children at one time, and she received payment either weekly or in a lump sum, probably from the government. So, infant mortality was a significant problem in New Zealand at this time, as it was estimated to run about 80 to 100 infants out of 1,000 colonial births. As such, a number of children under Dean's care died of various illnesses. In March 1889, a 6-month-old child had died of convulsions. In October of 1891, a 6-week-old baby had perished from cardiovascular and respiratory ailments, and a boy allegedly drowned under her care in 1894 as she hid the body
Ooh,
in her
okay. But I
garden.
was gonna say, firstly, I was gonna say, okay, the first two, I was like, that's like accidents. Like, back then we didn't have our medical, like,
Mhm.
we didn't have like as like technical, like, the tech to save lives like that. Like, we didn't have, I'm assuming we didn't have
Yep.
like doctors. I mean, we probably did have doctors and nurses, but nothing with, I mean, of course they were doing like lobotomies back then. So obviously it was not very like
Yeah.
good medical services. But the thing
It it wasn't of the highest medical
But the thing that
standards,
gets
that's
me
for
is
sure.
when she's like, "Yeah, I kind of hit the body." Like, what? Okay, you had me there, but then,
Yeah.
so she's a little sketchy.
So basically after they found the body of the little boy, like there was some suspicions. A coroner inquest was held, and Dean was not held responsible for the deaths due to universally poor hygiene standards and even childbirth itself. Nevertheless, the community came to mistrust
Gene.
Jean, uh, Dean, and rumors of mistreatment circulated. Additionally, children under Dean's care allegedly went missing without explanation. In the public's mind, this linked Dean to cases of infanticide or baby farming. In the United Kingdom and Australia, where women killed children under their care to avoid having to support them.
What? What?
Creepy, right? Yep.
Oh.
Yep. So this is the kicker. In 1895, Dean was observed boarding a train carrying a young baby and a hat box, but was later observed leaving the same train without the baby and only the hat box. As rail reporters later testified, the hat box was suspiciously heavy. A woman, Jane Hornsby, came forward claiming to have given her granddaughter Eva to Dean, and clothes identified as belonging to the child were found at Dean's residence. But Dean could not produce the child herself.
Uh, uh, what?
I'm not giggling at that. I'm just waiting for
Okay,
your
okay, okay. I'm
reactions.
into it.
A search along the railway found no sign of the child. Dean was arrested and charged with murder. Her garden was dug up, and 3 bodies, two of babies and one of a boy estimated to be 3 years old, were uncovered. An inquest found that one child, Ava, had died of suffocation, and one later identified as 1-year-old Dorothy Edith had died from an overdose of it's called laudanum or whatever, and it's used on children to sedate them. The cause of the death for the third child could not be determined. Dean was later charged in the murder. In her trial, Dean's lawyer, Alfred Hanlon, argued that all the deaths were accidental and that they had been
Sure.
covered up to prevent adverse publicity of the sort that Dean had previously received. On the 21st of June, 1895, however, Dean was found guilty of Dorothy Carter's murder and sentenced to death.
Like she should.
She is she is the only woman in the history of New Zealand to ever be hanged and get the death penalty.
Well, I'm saying right now, she kind of deserved it. Okay, that is
So,
so
yeah, I know,
messed
I know.
up. Like the fact that she
So
like,
here's
oh,
the here's the worst part about it.
there's a worse part.
People showed up to her trial with hat boxes with baby dolls inside them to support her. And there is also a legend slash like rumor that because of the evil things that she did, the farmland that their family like grew their crops and stuff on no longer is able to maintain crops anymore. Like the soil just won't grow anything.
Probably curse. Oh my
It
god.
probably is cursed.
Oh my
Isn't that creepy?
god.
It says after her death, Minnie Dean became part of New Zealand folklore. Local legend even claimed that no plants would grow on her grave. Los Angeles-based singer, what there was a singer that actually like made a song about her
Yeah.
and stuff. But yeah, creepy, isn't it?
Okay, that's creepy, but like I like the fact it's more like true crimey, like it's more true crime, like
Yeah,
than ghosty stuff. But like she kind of deserved it, and also like the fact I
yeah.
feel
No, I don't
so
disagree.
bad for these parents who probably couldn't take care of their kids, and they're like, "Hey, I'll give you my child for you to take care of," and then that is so messed up. Like
She unalived the children and took the
God,
money.
oh my God, that's so messed up.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, let's get into my messed up story. Now, my story is a little bit longer, so I'm gonna take off my 90s themed sunglasses so that way I can actually see what I'm saying. Okay, but
This is why Morgan always has me go first because hers are usually like true
mine's
story time.
mine's a story, okay? And I heard this story last
Okay.
year, and I really wanted to talk about it, but Houdini's story sounded a lot more interesting to me, so I was like, I'll do this. So when I was like, oh, we're gonna do this again, let me tell you this story. This is one of the creepiest stories I've ever came upon. And some think, I'm going to tell you right now, some people think that the story isn't true, but I kind of think it's true because of some things. But let me get into it, okay? So get your blanket ready to hide under, Sam, because I'm going to be telling you the spooky story of the Union House, or also being called the Screaming House of Union. Have you ever heard of it before?
No, I thought you were gonna honestly do the hotel one that was attached to one of the books that we read.
I know because I feel like that one, like we kind of already talked about it. If you guys are curious, Sam's
Mm.
talking about this episode we did last year with Trina, and we read a book to do with the Cecil Hotel. I feel like that one is interesting, but like this story is interesting because the guy who this is about, he actually wrote a novel talking about his experiences that happened in this book. The things he wrote kind of like sends chills down your spine. So let me get into this,
Mhm.
okay? So I thought I would start this off with a quote from his book. So he said, "Do you believe in ghosts? I used to be like many of you. I was a true skeptic, a true disbeliever. That was me until 3 years ago. Now I do believe. I wish I didn't. It would be easier for me to sleep at night. Even now, 3 years later, I am still awoken up. I'm so woken up in the night by the memory of the screaming man, the child in pain, and the dark ghostly image that turned my world upside down and changed my beliefs forever. I do believe in ghosts."
Dun dun dun.
Ah, chills. Okay, so let's get this straight.
Dun dun
Let's
dun.
get into the story, Sam. It's May 2001. Me, you are both 11. Or no, I'm 10. Yeah, I'm 10. I think you're 10 too, right? May 2001.
9.
Yeah, you're 9.
May 2001?
Yeah. I'm about to turn
Yeah, I'm
11.
9.
I'm about to turn 11. I'm about to go see Harry Potter for the first time. Listen, it's an exciting year, but not for Stephen LeChance. Now, this story gets taking place in Union, Missouri, and this follows the LeChance's family. Around the time Stephen LeChance, the father of three children, were living in a cramped apartment after his wife and their mother left them. As the lease was going to be up, Stephen was looking at classified ads, but everything was too expensive. He was a single dad. He really didn't have a place to like go to, and he was really afraid of that him and his children were going to end up homeless, and he didn't want that to happen. But he just happened to stumble upon a listing of a beautiful house. Not only was this a beautiful house, but it also was large enough for his family, and also had a backyard, and was located in a super quiet neighborhood. So Stephen, of course, scheduled a viewing for the like house, and he went to go see it, and the first thing he noticed when he walked in was that there was like freshly baked cookies. The landlady was a kind of weird, but and she was like showing the house like it was a museum more than like it was an apartment, which was a little odd. But Steven was like really excited to see it. And The other thing that really struck him as strange and really surprised him was that in the living room there were chirrups surrounding the top of the walls. Because you know, like some people, like they would used to have the wallpaper and they would have a border on the top. So this had like chirrups, like it had like angels around the top. And you know, anyone would think that was like, that's a little weird. But for Steven, he was like, he thought that was a sign because his daughter was like super into angels. So he was like, well, I think this is a sign that we should like move in. And like the house was completely perfect. It contained all its original woodwork, and there was like a large wooden pole that ran to the ceiling, creating a divider which separated the living room and the family room. The house also contained 2 floors, 3 bedrooms, a large kitchen with a mudroom that led to the back door. There was also a basement that contained a butcher shower. Have you ever heard of that, Sam? I feel like you would have.
A butcher shower?
Yeah.
It's probably like it probably is what it sounds like. It's like if they had like someone who it, if they have farmland and they got to cut up the animals and everything, like you get bloody. So instead of having to track through the house, you probably just go to the butcher
Yeah,
shower.
that's basically what it was. It was just a shower where you can, shower off. And honestly, me as a vegetarian, I would be like, no, thank you. I'm done. No, no, thank you. But to Steven, this was the perfect place for him to improve his family's life. So he told the landlady like that he wanted to put in an offer. And the landlady actually gave this really creepy line that I feel like you hear in like the beginning of like horror films, and it was like, you
Mm.
understand the responsibilities that come with living in a old house such as this. I'm sorry. I'd be like, what? No, no, thank
Dun
you.
dun
No,
dun. The
thank
ghost
you.
children are gonna come get you.
I know, seriously. I was like, what does that mean, though? What does that mean? But a week went by, the phone rang. The landlord tells Stephen excitedly that like him and his family has been selected to move into the house. He's really excited, and so him and his oldest daughter and his 2 young sons move into the house. The next day, Stephen was going to meet with like the landlady to sign the lease, but the landlady did not want
Hmm.
to meet at the house, which is weird. So she wanted to meet at this restaurant, and at first Stephen was like, "Oh, I really want to see my like new house," but he was like, "Okay, I'll just sign it at the restaurant." Which now thinking back about it, you can't help but wonder if maybe the landlady like knew something and knew to not go to the house. Stevie was just
Yeah.
excited to kind of get signed, move into this beautiful house. So the following day, on Memorial Day, the LaChance's family moves into the house. As Stephen was moving boxes from the moving truck, a car slows down and the passenger says, "Hope you get along here." Stephen assumed the neighbors were super nice, even though I would already be running. If a neighbor slowed down and was like, "I hope you get along here." Like, what? And keep in mind,
It sounds like some like Amityville horror
I know.
stuff.
Well, keep in mind, the person who slowed down zoomed off right away. Like, they didn't even wait for Steven to say anything. They were like, boop. Like, what? No, no, thank you. Like, listen, all the red flags are going off in my head. I'd be like, nope, I'm done. I'm done.
And he's like, "This is the perfect house. I love everything
I
about it. All the red flags, forget the red
Exactly.
flags."
Let's just throw them out. So the first night happens, nothing really happens, and Steven can't help but wonder if maybe this is because he was tired or because the house was trying to give them like a false sense of security before stuff really happens. Next morning, Steven is walking around the house and he notices that there are hook and eye latches, which is the type of latches you usually see on like gates. They're the ones with like the hooks and they just hook in,
Mhm.
and they were on the outside of the doors. So they were on the inside of the door, they were on the outside of the door, as if someone was trying to keep something into the bedrooms. And it was on each of the bedrooms.
Mhm.
So, which is, I don't really like that. So the first incident happens when Steven is deciding to hang up a painting of 2 angels, since once again, his daughter is a little bit obsessed with angels. And when he turns around after hanging up the painting, he hears a loud crash. He turns around and the painting's on the ground. And he's like, okay, maybe I didn't hang it up right. So you put it back on. He gets it fixed. He turns back around. He hears another loud crash. He turns back around. The painting's on the ground again. And so he finally puts it back up and he's like, oh my gosh. He's like, stay up, damn it. And before the picture has a chance to fall back down, one of Steven's kids call him to come out to the porch. So he comes out to the porch and his daughter's sitting there. His daughter's like, Dad, watch this. She points to this man walking down the street towards their house. The man, as soon as the man gets to the property line, he switches from walking next to the house to walking to the opposite side of the house. So he walks nowhere near the house. So he goes on the opposite direction. And the daughter says, like, that every single person who's walked by has not walked by the house, hasn't been crossing the street. And Stephen didn't really believe this. He was like, maybe she's lying to me. Like, he didn't like really believe what she was saying to him. So he actually waited outside, and he noticed that every single person that walked by would not walk by their house at all. Stephen would try to say hello to the neighbors, and they would put their heads down and completely ignored him. And Stephen just chalked this up as maybe they just didn't really like his family, or maybe something happened. He wasn't really quite sure, but he was like so like happy about having this house. He didn't want like anything to ruin it. You know, he was like kind of like
Right.
nothing's gonna ruin this for him. So Sunday happens, and imagine this is like they just moved on Friday. Okay, this is 3 days after they moved in. Stephen was cleaning the yard and asked one of his sons to go down in the basement to grab a garden hose to clean off the walkways and wash off the house. And the moment that his son left, there was a loud scream. Stephen ran into the house, sees his son standing in the kitchen in a puddle of his own pee. When Stephen asks his son what happened, his son says, something chased me up the basement steps. He asks his son, like, what was it? And he goes, I don't know, Daddy, but it was big. They went downstairs and they saw nothing except the hose that his son dropped when running away. Which, by the way, my kid does this. I'm running out of the house. No, absolutely not. My kid says, oh, I have an imaginary friend. No, you do not. We are moving now. Like, absolutely not. Okay. So Monday comes, which is the start of a long week of work for Steven, and the kids are like in school. And so every day they leave the house, they come back home, and all the lights are on. And Steven starts to get mad at his kids because he's like, I've told you to turn off the lights. Like, you guys aren't turning them off. And even when he like tells them to turn them off, they're not turning them off. So Friday night comes around and he's like, you guys wait in the car. I'm going to go around and I'm going to make sure every single door, making sure all the doors are locked, making sure all the lights are off. And they leave, they go to like an event, they come back at night and all the lights are on. So Steven thinks that someone's in the house. So Steven makes his kids stay in the car. He goes and searches around the house, but the doors are locked and nothing is missing. Just the lights are on, which is weird. When the kids actually entered the house, his daughter said that she felt like the living room was cold. So Stephen walked into the living room and he noticed that the temperature had dropped 30 degrees, while other parts of the house were super warm. This would happen for the next couple of days, where some rooms of the houses would be super warm, some parts of the houses would be like super cold. And then there was also this weird thing that was happening with the like electricity, where you would feel like currents moving through the house, where like your hair would
Mhm.
stand up straight. And so Steven's father was actually a contractor, so he came and looked, and his father was like, besides you not having like something covering like the outlet boxes in the basement, there's nothing really going on. Like, everything looks fine. And even his father felt the currents and couldn't really explain what it was at all.
Mhm.
And then Sunday happens. Okay. This is 10 days after they moved in. Steven's getting ready to go on a trip and is going to be dropped off the kids at his parents' house. They're sitting in the living room playing cards games when Steven saw something from the corner of his eyes. And I quote, I noticed it first out of the corner of my eye, a quick glance, something moving, standing at the kitchen doorway that led into the family's room. Nothing, something, not something, someone. I looked toward it again. It was a dark figure of a man. Even though there was a full light, he was solid in a form, except there was a moving, churning, dark gray, black smoke or mist that made up his form. I looked down because I was sure I wasn't seeing this and that my eyes were playing tricks on me. One or two rationalizations, and we could go on with our lives without incidents. A few moments passed, and I was sure that when I looked up again, it would be gone. But he was still there, and he began moving into the family's room and pausing in the center of the room. His form was still a mass of turning blackness. He stood there for what seems an eternity, but in actuality, it was just a few moments, and then he melted in thin air. So Steven realizes that he has two choices: run out of the house screaming like a crazy person, or calmly get his kids out of the house. He decides to just be calmly. So he goes, "Hey kids, do you want to go get some like soda?" Which, by the way, what? What ice cream? Ice cream's better. Why? Okay, but right him. He's like, "Let's go get some soda," and the kids were like, "Yes." But as soon as they left the house, Stephen went to go put the key in the keyhole to like lock the door. There is a loud scream of a man screaming in pain, and the house starts shaking. Stephen immediately screams, "Get in the car!" As he runs into the car, his youngest son, who sat in the back seat of the car, looks up and says, "Daddy, the basement monster is standing in the upstairs window." Stephen looks back to see that there is a black form standing in the window watching them leave. I'm getting like chills and I already know the story. I'm already like, ew.
I'm like low key like turning my chair to make sure nothing, because that's my hallway right there. Like I'm like anything wanting to walk behind me.
You made a mistake by keeping it open, Sam, okay? Okay, but since Stephen was away for a week, he had time to think about what happened, because even if the house was haunted, it wasn't like he had a choice on where he could live. Stephen spent most of his money on the house, and some of the money like he used for moving. He really didn't have a place to live, and so this is his only opportunity. So when Stephen returned home, he picked up his kids and returned back to the house, which, another red flag. Why would you do that? Okay, whatever.
Listen, I would sleep in the car.
Yeah, no.
Like turn the heat on, find some pillows, sleep in the
Because
car.
at this point, you're like, this is too much. So, thankfully, nothing happened once they returned. But now Steven's parents brought up the fact that the house might be haunted, which is like, duh. And maybe he should call
Duh.
the landlord to see if he could get some answers from her. It took him a while to get in contact with the landlord, but she said when he asked her, like, "Oh, is the house haunted?" She was like, "No, I don't think so." But then she like hung up, right? So she hung up. She's being weird about it. She hung up. Then she called back. She was like, "Well, actually, the last guy that lived there actually left in the middle of the night and left all his stuff there." And then coming to find out, the last person that lived there before that also left all her stuff there. And she hasn't been able to get in contact with this lady at all. And so Stephen asks, like, "Well, so how long, like, has people lasted in this house?" And the landlady said, "Not much more than a year, honey. Why do you ask?" What? Why do you, what? Why do you ask? I don't know, Karen. Why do I ask? Okay,
Because creepy shadow dude's turning on all my
I know,
lights.
right? Oh gosh. The rest of the week comes and goes, and Steven is convinced that this is a one time thing. That is until he was on the phone with his mother. His children were playing in his bedroom that was located on the first floor. While on the phone, he heard the door knobs rattling, thinking that it was the kids being kids. He yells at the kids to stop playing around, and they don't answer. So he tells his mom, like, "Oh, just hold a minute." And he starts yelling at them again. He's like, "Guys, knock it off." And like the doorknobs are like rattling, until suddenly he hears his daughter's scared voice says, "Daddy, I'm in here reading with my brother, reading, and my brothers are asleep." It was like all of a sudden the temperature in the house dropped 30 degrees, and there was a feeling of electricity running throughout his body. There was a horrible stench that Stephen has a hard time describing. Then it started the screaming. It started off soft, and then got louder and louder and louder. Stephen yelled through the phone for help to his mother, then threw his phone and ran towards his bedroom. The house began to shake and come alive. From what he could hear, it sounded like someone large was coming down the stairs. Boom, boom, boom. Then his daughter began to scream, "Daddy, what's happening?" Stephen did what any father would do. He tried with all his might to get his children out of the house, but as it was screaming and shaking, he couldn't get the door open. The bedroom door was shut and wouldn't budge. As he slammed his body against the door, he could hear his children scream for help. He continued throwing himself against the door until it finally slammed open. His daughter was in shock, but at this point he instructed his son to grab the youngest son, and they ran for the car. As they ran for the car, the door in the bedroom slammed open, and even though Stephen didn't look, he knew something was following them. They got into they got to the door, slammed it open, and ran to the car. As they ran to the car, the house was screaming after them. Stephen drove the car to the top of the hill and waited for his parents to come. But that's when he saw it. It was searching the house from room to room. When the thing realized that they weren't there, the house grew quiet and things disappear. Now, I do want to mention that when the noise happened, it actually set off, so it was so loud that the dogs in the neighborhood were actually barking because they could hear the screaming. So
Oh
that
gosh.
was the last night that his kids ever went to the house again. Stephen had to go and get their items from the house with his brother, and when he was there, he could hear screaming, knocks, and bangs as if the house was done with being quiet. When his brother and him finally put the last of the boxes in the car, Stephen heard something. Looking up, he saw a black figure in the tree by the house, and his brother saw the figure and whispered, "It's in the trees." As they got in the car, the figure jumped from the tree as if chasing them away from the house. When Stephen met the landlady to give the keys over to her, he was still bruised from banging into the door, and the landlady said to him, "Some people are meant to live in old houses like that, and some people aren't. I never thought you were the old house type." See, yeah, right? So Stephen told the landlady that she shouldn't rent the house to families again, but the landlord said that she was going to rent the house to a family member, like, just no kids, because Stephen was like, you should not have kids in there. But when Stephen was moving out, a family came to look at the house and they had children with them. So still, Since Stephen has moved out, he still deals with lights flickering, but nothing as horrible as what happened in that house. After all, the house was built on bad land. There was nothing that Stephen or his family could do to stop it. As for today, the landlord turned the house into a dog kennel this past fall. I guess she ran out of people that would live in that old white house like that one. And I do want to
Give
mention,
it to the dogs.
which I'm like, that's mean. My dog's right there.
That
How
is
dare you?
mean.
But like, I do want to mention that the Catholic Church actually officially declared this house as haunted, which is like, ugh. And the landlord said that the screaming was the little angels screaming, or angels screaming, not like something bad. And Steven, like, because I was listening to an interview before we recorded, but Steven said that other past tenants reached out to him, and he said the worst one was when this little girl, or this woman lived there, and she brought her granddaughter into the house to go upstairs to see a new kitten she got, and when they got upstairs, the kitten's was dead, and their back was broken. um, yeah. So this book, I do want to say that Stephen did write two books on this. He wrote the first book he wrote came out in 2008 called The Uninvited, which talks more in depth about his experience in the book, and the second one he wrote, which was was Blessed Are the Wicked. But anyways, that is the story of the Screaming House of Union. What did you think, Sam?
I'm never reading those books. Look, dude, I was literally you'll see it when you're editing the video. I was like, nope, that's just the pillow that's just the pillow that's on my chair. I'm good. I'm
What?
good. This is why I don't read scary things and don't watch scary things because my brain like starts to play tricks. Something flashed over here. I think it was my neighbor coming home, and I'm just like, oh my god, is there an oogie boogie outside? And I'm home alone right now, so I'm just like,
Yeah, you made a bad decision.
I didn't make a bad decision. My husband's going to a show tonight where like all the artists are covering other artists. So our friend is being Eminem
Oh,
tonight because he's a
fun.
white rapper.
Hmm.
And because I have to work tomorrow morning, he took our baby to his parents' house so that way he could spend the night there. So that way he could go to the show, but I'd get some sleep.
Hmm. Which is very nice. But I don't think you're gonna get any sleep
But
now.
he's sick, so he's on his way
You're
home.
like, oh God,
He's sick, so he's on his way home, and I'm like,
thank God.
thank you. Because now I'm going to ruminate in that freaking story for the
Well,
rest of
I
the
hope you
night.
enjoy it. But I do want to say, Sam, that I hope you know that I wrote up my notes yesterday. And I already knew the story, but I did more in depth, like deep dive of it, and it scared me. And then when I got done, I took my melatonin to go to sleep, and I was like middle of sleep, and I took my melatonin. And I was like so scared. Like I was like, I gotta turn on the lights. I'm so scared. It's a really spooky story, and Steven does like he does a lot of interviews, and like he's very open about it and very open about his like what he went through. I just like the landlady. There's a how dare you? Like, why would you even rent that out
Mm-hmm.
to children if you know it's haunted? Why? What? Like, why? But yeah. Anyways, I hope you guys have a great Halloween. Don't be too scared of our stories. Like, don't. Hopefully, you get some sleep. But me, Sam, thank you so much for being here for our Halloween episode. Also, if you guys listen to this as on the podcast, as like on Audible or on YouTube or on Spotify, please check out it on YouTube because then you can see our cute costumes. But anyways, let me back on my glasses. We thank you so much for um, checking out this podcast. If you guys love this podcast, want to support us, please feel free to rate us on Spotify as it does help push our podcast out there. Also remember to follow us on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on wherever you can find us. And Sam will tell you about the rest of our socials.
Okay, so if you think we are absolutely hilarious, which fun fact, my friends, we are. We do have a TikTok. It is Just More Page podcast, and for all the videos and stories and whatever else we decide to post, we do have an Instagram. It is Just More Page official, and we are also Just More Page official on Threads. So go ahead and follow us, stalk us, come say hi, leave a comment on YouTube. Hey, you guys finally get to see our actual like faces, which is awesome. Off of
Yeah,
I know,
woo! You
right?
actually know what we look like.
Faces to the voices. So yeah, come talk to us,
Yes.
chit chat, tell us if you like the stories. Do you have any spooky story suggestions for next year?
Ooh. Oh my god,
Ooh.
next year we should have
And
guests.
ooh, we
Oh,
should have
what
guests
are you
next
like?
year. Ooh, we should have
Anyways.
Trina on. I love
Oh
her.
yeah, I
She's
love
awesome.
Trina.
Anyway.
She's fun.
um, we don't know what we'll be reading next week, but we will talk to you all next Sunday.
Next Sunday.
So
Okay.
yeah.
Bye.
Bye.